Carlo Acutis was not just an ordinary teenager. From the very beginning, there was something unique and extraordinary about his life. Even before he was born, his mother, Antonia Salzano, experienced a mysterious dream. She was wrapped in a radiant light, and a voice from that light gently said, "I am your son. One day, I will take you to heaven." At that time, she didn't fully understand what the dream meant. But later, as her son grew and lived a life of deep faith and love for God, the dream took on a powerful, prophetic meaning. Carlo was born in London in 1991, but he was raised in Milan, Italy. From a very young age, he showed a deep love for God. He wasn't pushed into religion by his parents. In fact, they were not particularly religious at the time. But something in Carlo was different. He had a longing to know Jesus, and he especially loved the Eucharist, the presence of Jesus in Holy Communion. He went to daily Mass, prayed the Rosary every day, and spent time before the Blessed Sacrament. It wasn't forced. It came naturally from his heart. He also had a gift for technology. Carlo loved computers and was very skilled in programming and design. But unlike many teenagers who use technology mainly for games or social media, Carlo used his gifts to serve God. He created a website that documented Eucharistic miracles. From around the world, true stories where something extraordinary had happened during the celebration of the Mass. His goal was simple: to help people believe that Jesus is truly present in the Eucharist. This project was more than a hobby, it was a mission from the heart. But Carlo was not only holy in his religious devotion. He was a boy filled with kindness and compassion, who was known for helping others, especially the poor and the lonely. If he saw someone in need, he would offer help. He would give away his allowance to those less fortunate. He stood up for kids who were bullied and made friends with those who were often left out. Everyone who knew him said the same thing. He was gentle, humble, and full of joy. Then, when Carlo was just 15 years old, everything changed. He became sick very suddenly. Doctors discovered he had a rare and aggressive form of leukemia. It was a shock. One day he was full of life, and the next, he was fighting a deadly illness. But even in this, Carlo didn't complain. He didn't feel sorry for himself. He accepted his suffering with deep faith. He offered all of it to Jesus, for the Pope, for the Church, and for all those who suffer more than he did. Died. Carlo looked at his mother and said something that would stay with her forever. He told her, "Mom, when I get to heaven, I will perform miracles." Those words were not said with pride or arrogance. They came from a place of peace and trust in God. Not long after his death, stories of miracles began to surface. People from around the world began praying to Carlo and asking for his intercession. Many claimed they were healed. Others spoke of conversions, of peace during times of sorrow, and of signs that gave them hope. Antonia, his mother, would later speak about the dreams and spiritual experiences she had both before and after Carlo's death. One dream in particular was deeply moving. A few days before Carlo passed away, she dreamed she was inside a quiet church, standing in front of an image of Saint Francis of Assisi. As she looked at the image, something amazing happened. The face of Saint Francis dissolved, and in its place, she saw the radiant and glowing face of her son, Carlo. In that moment, she felt a spiritual message was being given to her, that her son had a mission like that of Saint Francis, a mission of peace, of humility, and of calling people to holiness. The next night, she had another dream. This time, she heard a voice in the night, strange and unsettling, that told her her son's death was near. At first, she thought it was just anxiety or a trick of the mind. But the following morning, Carlo was rushed to the hospital. His condition had suddenly worsened. He was diagnosed with fulminant leukemia. It all happened so fast. And yet through it all, Carlo remained calm. He was not afraid. From his hospital bed, he said, "I offer all the suffering I will have, to endure for the Lord, for the Pope, and for the whole Church." His words showed a maturity and spiritual strength far beyond his age. Antonia had another dream shortly before Carlo's passing. In this dream, she saw a little lamb, wounded, bleeding, and left to die. A voice echoed in Arabic, a language she did not understand, but she somehow knew what it meant: sacrifice and victim. It wasn't until later, when she watched her son suffer from intense bleeding due to leukemia, that she realized the lamb in her dream was a symbol of her own son. Just like Jesus, the Lamb of God, Carlo was offering himself with love and silence, surrendering to God's will. Even after his death, Carlo continued to appear to his mother in dreams. In one of the most joyful dreams, Carlo appeared and gently told her, "You will become a mother again." At the time, this seemed impossible. She was older, and she had no plans of having more children. But several years later, she gave birth to twins, two beautiful children, born 12 years after Carlo passed away. For Antonia, this was not just a coincidence. It was a sign of hope, a reminder that life continues, and that Carlo's spirit is still present in the life of his family. The church also took notice of Carlo's life and the miracles associated with him. In 2020, just 14 years after his death, the Catholic Church beatified Carlo Acutis. This is a formal step in the process of sainthood. During the beatification ceremony, Antonia stood as both a grieving mother and a witness to God's work. She gave thanks to God for having entrusted her with such an extraordinary soul. One miracle in particular played a major role in the beatification process. It happened in Brazil. A young boy named Mathias was suffering from a rare condition. He couldn't eat solid food because of a serious birth defect in his pancreas. Every day was a struggle for him and his family. A local priest, Father Marcelo, began a novena, 9 days of prayer, asking for Carlo's intercession. He placed a small piece of Carlo's shirt on the boy's body and prayed with faith. The very next day, something incredible happened. Mathias began eating solid food for the first time in his life without any pain or problems. A medical scan later confirmed that his pancreas was now completely normal. It was a miracle that couldn't be explained by doctors. This healing was officially recognized by the Vatican. But Carlo's impact is not only through miracles, it is the way he lived his life that continues to touch people. He wasn't a monk or a priest. He was a regular teenager who loved video games, animals, and his friends. But at the center of his life was Jesus. He often said, "To always be united with Jesus, that is my life's plan." He believed that going to Mass and receiving the Eucharist was the most important thing anyone could do, not just as a tradition, but as a real relationship with God. Carlo also had a deep love for the Virgin Mary. When he was just 8 years old, he had a special experience during a church procession. As he looked at a statue of Mary, he felt that she gave him her heart and invited him to give his life to her and to Jesus. From that day forward, Carlo dedicated himself completely. He wanted to be a saint, and he worked every day to grow in faith and love. What made Carlo so special was not just the visions or the miracles, but the way he lived with joy, simplicity, and love. He showed the world that holiness is not something distant or reserved for the past. It is something that can be lived today by young people, by ordinary people, by anyone who chooses to follow Jesus with all their heart. His mother, Antonia, continues to share his story with people around the world. She believes that her son's mission is not over. She often says, Carlo didn't want to be admired. He wanted people to follow Jesus. Through her talks, interviews, and writings, she keeps the message alive, not to make her son famous, but to bring others closer to God. Even now, people all over the world report having dreams and signs. Connected to Carlo, they see him in visions, they feel peace after praying to him, and they find new strength in times of trouble. Carlo often appears in these dreams not as a distant or powerful figure, but as a friend, a teenager in jeans and sneakers, smiling with kindness and calm. This is how he wants to be remembered, as a companion in faith, someone who walks with us, especially young people, through the struggles of modern life. Carlo Acutis' life is a reminder that faith is real, that miracles still happen, and that even in a digital age, it is possible to live for God. He once said, "People are born as originals, but many die as photocopies." Carlo didn't want to be a copy. He wanted to be the person God created him to.